obviously it's better, so we should be doing the better thing. I think it's a little bit more complicated than that and a lot more difficult than that. It's like, yes, it's the better thing, but in the long run, or if all of these other things are calculated out and taken under consideration, I wonder if it still would be the better choice.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, you're ready.
Yeah. There we are.
Here's another week, man. How's it going for you?
Good.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Did you take everybody out for breakfast again this week or what?
No. They didn't deserve breakfast.
You took them out last week.
You got to earn flapjacks around here, you know?
That's right.
No breakfast this week. We're doing it once a month, but actually we're a little kind of slow right now, just in between projects, just people dragging their feet on decisions and all that kind of stuff. So
it's the tariffs and scaring everybody away.
Yeah, people are scared. Maybe that aluminum's too expensive. Can't build my house because aluminum went up.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Who knows? People freak out all the time, you know? Let Trump puff his chest out a little bit and he'll calm down. Everything will be okay. Keep spending your money. Keep remodeling your home. It'll be fine. It's going to be fine.
How's your guys handling the slowdown?
The one guy's fine because he does a little bit of side jobs anyway. So he's had a couple little side jobs to do here and there. And his father owns a moving company, so if he needs to, he can go plug in for a day here and there and just do a little bit of moving work. The other guy, not quite as easy. He doesn't do any side jobs. He's too new. So, you know, I told him I'm not going to give anyone any false hope and blow smoke here. Like I have projects coming up, but it's just been very, I guess the best word for it is just unpredictable lately. It's just been, like I said, people kind of pulling back a little bit from scope of work, or they're just indecisive as far as if they want to do this right now or they want to do this a little bit later in the year. So yeah, it's, I'm not too concerned about it. I just have not been as busy as I have been previously. So, yeah. Nature of the beast, right? We always say this business is kind of a feast or famine thing, and it's cyclical like anything else.
Roller coaster, yeah, all the time.
Yeah,
it's always like this. Yep.
Yeah.
Do you are you going to lay the guys off officially? Or are they collecting unemployment, or are they just chilling at home?
No, right now it's just kind of sporadic. So they both work today. Okay. They're both working tomorrow, Friday. It's just kind of one guy had the all week off last week. One guy had a half a week last week. So I told them I'll just keep you informed day to day. As soon as I know anything, you'll know. But if you need steady, then I'm not going to tell you not to look. Like I said, I don't want to give anyone any false hope. You know, it's I'm a small company. I don't have not that you're any safer in a bigger company, because you know you're at the bottom. You're on the bottom rung of a ladder with 15 guys working there. They slow down, you're the first one to go. You know, but yeah. So I'll just keep them informed, but not officially laying anybody off yet and anything like that. So usually I would have them do work around my house, but unless I know that those projects are sold and coming in, if I don't have that profit coming in, I'm just paying you out of my pocket. And I like them and all, but not that much. Plus the quality of work is questionable.
Yeah.
I'm kidding. But we got little stuff, you know, like I had one guy today just doing like wainscoting in a powder room, and it's just your typical powder room, right? 5x5 powder room, and a chair rail and some panel molds and some baseboard and shoe, and that's it, you know? So you're done in a day. We're not even painting it. They have their own painter. So it's like, it's a day's work, but it's a day's work. So got to be done. Yeah. They're happy. So that kind of stuff. Usually I have a pretty good backlog of those, but even those, I don't want to say they're seasonal here because I don't do a lot of exterior work. I mean, God, I probably do certainly less than 10% of my projects are exterior. So not necessarily seasonal, but people hibernate over the winter. So even if it's interior stuff over the winter, they're usually just not even thinking about it. People are a little more active, a little more prone to do stuff when the weather breaks, whether inside or outside. So that's where I'm at. How's things out there?
Fair. Going good. I had to drop off a door. We have a very old arch door that we're trying to reuse for a custom, like, built-in pantry entrance. And the door, it has an arch at the top, and we just have a slab. We don't have the jamb for it. And so we were going to build the jamb ourselves, and then we're like, it's an arch door. That's kind of a pain in the butt. So we have a local door manufacturer / wholesaler, kind of, and they do pretty much anything you need and want that has to do with a door. So I took it over to them for them to build a custom jamb door. I went and picked it up today, and the jamb looks amazing. Looks great. So that's good. The issue was that because it was such an old door, the glass in it was leaded glass, not insulated, just right. It's that old school, and they were afraid. They were afraid of it. They were afraid to touch it. It's liability if the glass broke. It's not tempered, so somebody could get sliced up and actually hurt themselves pretty bad if it did break. So we came to the conclusion that I was going to pad it, protect it, tape it all up, so just the glass, and then they would still build the jamb and then hang the door. So I went and monkeyed around with that this week, and turned out pretty nice. So yeah, getting ready for the rest of the project. So these are all the little tiny things that's going on for a bigger project that we haven't even started yet. I'm trying to get all of these outside little things done. So when the project does start, we're just sliding them in and we can keep going. And there's no lead time on things. We have one more thing that we're really holding off on. So, we're waiting on a lead time on, and then it's go time. So
what's that? Cabinets?
No, a range from Italy. We got this something range from Italy, and we're having a hard time nailing down a lead time on when it's going to show up. So we need it for templating for countertops. So we always make sure that we have our range in, stove range, whatever we're doing, we have to have that at that point in time that it's ready to template. And so you kind of have to work backwards, and the longest lead time item you have this particular project is the range, because it's coming from Italy and there's a lot of moving parts to it. So we're waiting to hear back on that lead time, and then we'll build the schedule back from there.
Got it. Makes sense.
Yeah. So
thinking ahead.
Spent a lot of hours this week in the design room with designing another project. We have a master bathroom project that's in design, and I'm playing around with the chief architect software that we use. So that's I really enjoy that part. That's
design
fun.
Phase?
Yeah, I do. Sometimes we go through a designer on the bigger projects, obviously, but this one's just a master bathroom, small enough, and so we'll take the design on ourselves. So and usually that means I'm the main designer there, and I have a lot of fun with it. So it's kind of lets the artistic design out a little bit for me. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
good. That's good.
Yeah. So that's what we're doing.
Wearing some different hats over there.
Yeah. Hey, you're a business owner. You wear all the hats all the time.
Yeah.
Right.
Ain't that the truth?
Right. That's why you get paid the big bucks. That's what they say.
Right.
All right. Well, here we go again. Another week of the Renovation Situation podcast, where we pull back the layers of this complex remodeling industry. So grab your beverage of choice. Let's do this. I'm Joe out in the Pacific Northwest. He is Todd in the Midwest. What are we working on today, Todd? What's our situation?
I think the situation today is insulation. Insulation, maybe as it relates to codes, because I think I don't remember if that was last week or a couple weeks ago, but we were talking about insulation relative to something else, and I don't remember what we were talking about, but codes came up as to what the requirement was in exterior walls, and it kind of just got us going on down that whole rabbit hole of differences just geographically, like what your requirements are, what the requirements are here, what kind of insulation we're using, air sealing, all that fun stuff, our values. So I think we were going to kind of sink into that a little bit today.
Yeah. All right. That sounds good. Let's do this. I think it would be really interesting to like compare notes on this insulation code situation that we're in. Because I suspect that I'm in a milder climate. That I know. I don't suspect that, but I do know I'm in a milder climate than you, but I suspect that I have higher code requirements, or I don't know if it's considered higher code requirements, better code. I don't know if it's better.
I mean,
more
higher in terms of our value, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think, I don't know why that is, but let's go into this. Let's start with like building a wall. So if we're building a wall, what's your requirement? What's the insulation R value requirement that you have to hit if you're building an exterior wall in Illinois?
So on a quick Google search, I have this just ended up at Wheaton codes, which is pretty nice western suburb. So I'm not gonna argue with what they're saying. And I would imagine they're adopting State of Illinois International Energy Conservation Code 2018.
2018.
Now there may be 2018. So there may, I believe there is a 2021. Maybe Wheaton didn't get around to it yet.
There is a 2021.
Yeah, but is my screen going through there?
Yeah, we see it loud and clear. Exterior walls
are at R20 or R13 cavity plus R5 continuous.
So the way I'm reading that is, are you reading the R20 is obviously a 2x6 wall, or if you're going to do a 2x4 wall, that's R13, but then you have to do the 5 continuous outside.
Yeah, that's how I'm reading that also.
Okay.
Which brings up a couple questions, right? I mean, if you're saying R5 continuous, if you're building a brand new wall, brand new home addition, then fine, you can build it however you want. But if you're asking for R5 continuous on a remodel, where are you putting continuous? I'm not ripping off someone's exterior, So
yeah, they make you just do the addition, like just the new walls, which is kind of funny because you air seal this room that's attached to a very leaky house. So you got to start somewhere. You got to draw the line somewhere. So that's
Yeah. So I've had this come up before, and on a project in a suburb that is, I'll leave the name out of it, but a suburb that's known for, they are known for being very strict with their code enforcement. And a lot of suburbs are, and I always say that's fine. I mean, you and I have talked about this before. Like, most of the time, code is minimum requirement, so we're usually satisfying that all the time, anyways. But sometimes it can get a little sticky because in this scenario, and this is going back probably 3 years, 4 years, we're doing a remodel, and it's an old home. It's 2x4 construction, and they wanted R21 and an exterior wall. And I said, or maybe it was R20. And I said, how am I going to get R20 and a 3.5-inch wall? Someone explain it to me. Like, tell me how I'm going to do it, and I'm happy to do it. But to my knowledge, there's no insulation that meets that code. And now I can Google closed cell spray foam. If I'm getting too far ahead, let me know. But I can Google closed cell spray foam, and some of that will say that it's rated R6 to R7 per inch. So if that's true, and you're spraying 3 inches of closed cell spray foam in an exterior wall, then fine. Then you're netting 21 R21. However, my insulation contractor, who's been doing this for a long time and was pretty much kind of pioneering some of the spray foam insulation in these parts, said that that is not true. You are not getting R7 out of closed cell spray foam. You're not.
Really?
So, yeah, that's what he said. But he said, if it satisfies the requirement, fine, then go ahead and we'll do it. But just out of curiosity, because, I wanted to curious what the building department would say. I said, well, if I'm not getting that out of any sort of insulation, how am I achieving R20? And then they started to bring up continuous. So I'm like, you're telling me I'm going to add furring strips to this bathroom and spray more, or I'm putting some sort of continuous on the interior and then drywalling over that. Like, it's nuts what they want you to try and do sometimes. Anyway, that was one of my most recent experiences that stuck out in my head. And like I said, that's going back about 3 years. So
yeah. Okay. All right. So you are R20 if you're building 2x6 wall, but you don't build 2x6 walls, do you? You're
Not
usually
typically.
building 2x4 walls still out there, right?
Anything that I have built, I think I've built 2x6 walls on an addition one time. Anything else is always 2x4. And anything I see just driving down the street, people that are building new, from what I can tell, it's 2x4 construction.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. All right. So let's talk a little bit about the Pacific Northwest. So here in Washington, it's like kind of very different. If we're building a brand new wall, I very rarely, if ever, build a 2x4 wall exterior. Always 2x6. It's always going to be a 2x6 wall. Yep. Interior walls are 2x4. All exterior walls are 2x6. It's been like that ever since I came out here. It was the biggest thing I noticed right away. It's just standard. That's what we do. I think it's because our code is a little bit stricter. But let's take a look at what our code is currently. Now, we are on the 2021 code and is adopted as R20. So we still have the same there, but we have to do +5 continuous insulation on the exterior. So we have to do 20 +5. Now, or we could do R13, which is your 2x4 wall, but then you have to do 10 continuous insulation. So this just kind of hit us, I think, in 2021 is when the whole continuous insulation came after us, I think. So it's interesting, isn't it, that the Pacific Northwest is much more mild in weather, but our code is a little bit more strict.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting.
Why do you think that is?
I'm assuming it's more relative to just the idea of wasting any sort of excess utility, like heat, like you guys, I think, are a little probably more concerned with utility use and natural resource usage and consumption than we are, would be my guess off the top of my head.
That's a good guess. Yeah.
I mean, I don't know, but
I would love it if that's true. And I bet you it is to some degree. I don't think it's one thing. I think it's a whole bunch of things, right? It's probably a lot of politics are playing into this too.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's what I was going to say. Who writes these codes?
Well, honestly,
couple local politicians,
my opinion,
couple attorneys.
Yes. I think it's somebody who sits behind a desk, and I'm not trying to insult anybody here, but it truly is somebody.
No, go ahead.
Who who sits behind a desk and says, on paper, this sounds wonderful. It's better. So R20 or R20 plus 5 continuous. Which one's better? Well, yeah, of course. R20 plus 5 is better. Okay, well then let's just do that. Okay, and then it gets signed into bill, and nobody thinks about all of the things that are indirectly impacted by that decision. The cost of housing just goes up even more, and all the other things that are required to now do all of this extra work, and all of that cost goes onto the homeowner, which then makes the house more expensive, and it perpetuates the problem that we have with affordable housing. So I think, I don't know what, we're not talking about what the answer is, but you asked who's making these decisions, and I truly think it's somebody who is just sitting around going, well, the math says it's better, so let's just go with that. And obviously it's better, so we should be doing the better thing. I think it's a little bit more complicated than that, and a lot more difficult than that. It's like, yes, it's the better thing, but in the long run, or if all of these other things are calculated out and taken under consideration, I wonder if it still would be the better choice. I don't know. Now, you look at the situation where the insulation is not as strict in Illinois as it is here, and yet you have much colder temperatures and much hotter temperatures,
and hotter
so
summers.
Arguably, your energy to heat and cool your houses are a lot more in demand than here. So why wouldn't it be more strict there?
That's a good question. Unless maybe it is.
I
was reading off of Wheaton's 2019. Maybe they adopted the same thing, and maybe it is the same. I should probably do a little more research other than the 4-minute research that I did before we got on today. But
yeah,
if that is the case, like I said, sometimes we're just slower to adopt things in the Midwest too. You know,
that's true. Yeah,
yeah.
You guys are pretty slow.
Well, you even see that from different municipalities, right? I mean, depending on where you're working, I always check with the local building codes to see what they've adopted. Some are stricter than others in certain things.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that, because this is a good example. I'm reading off of what Washington State is requiring.
Yeah.
What you need to do also is do the next step, which is what Todd has done, is he went straight to a town, because you have to go to the town and find out what their requirements are as well. And they may be adopting or haven't yet adopted the new code yet. So you have to check with your municipality to find out what their requirements are. Could be slightly different.
Yeah.
Good.
There's I found that out one time, and just real quick, just in terms of adopting different energy codes and whatnot, we were doing just a kitchen remodel, and I don't think we even moved this electrical box, but it was a typical just 1900 electrical box, you know, and you know, the little holes that are built into that box already, they're already in there. They're naturally in there. The inspector came in for a rough electrical inspection. He said, you need to fill those holes. And I thought he was joking. I'm going back quite a few years here, but
yeah,
I thought he was joking. And I'm just like, yeah, like with what? Am I going to caulk them? And he goes, no, there's a fireproof putty that you put on there to air seal it. And I was like, what? And he said, it's energy code. And I was like, oh my God, he's serious. So I was like, oh, okay. But this is, I mean, I'm going back again. This is probably 8-9 years ago, I think.
Yeah.
But just point is those codes. I don't even know if the city of Chicago has still adopted that code yet. But now it's commonplace where falls in line with insulation is just air sealing and fireproofing certain things, you know? So they have that moldable fireproof putty that you put around all those little electrical openings just to air seal exterior walls and fire prevention, you know, that kind of deal.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't think I'm fast enough. I'm trying to pull up a picture of it, but I've used that quite a bit actually. It's
stuff works great.
This isn't a great picture, but real quick, just so people get an idea. This is it's moldable, it's pliable, it's very, very sticky. I've used it quite a bit. It's not only fire, but it's also sound. So you want to use that in soundproofing. But yeah, it was funny. When I first heard about it, inspector told me he didn't care how I blocked the holes. Any tape. I could have used he's like, just duct tape it, or take what we had was that silver tape.
HVAC
the silver tape that we use for ducts. And we just put that on there, and he was like, great, fine, perfect. That'll work.
Yeah.
Not exactly what you would want to use, but you know, in a pinch, we're talking many, many years ago, right? When we first started learning this stuff. Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah.
I want to know, pull your screen back up. I want to know what your requirement is for the ceiling for the attic.
Ceilings, I have R49.
You have R49 in the ceiling in your attic.
Yeah. Here, hang on. Let me show this to you again here. I've got,
so that was
ceilings. I have R49.
Okay. So we moved up from R49. So you're in, we're in R60 is what our requirement is.
Yeah. God, that's a lot of
R60. And then what do you have there? You have what else we got here? Foundation walls. So that's a basement, right? So you have continuous 10, or you can build a 2x4 wall in front of your basement concrete wall and put R13 in the 2x4 wall. That's what yours is saying. Foundation walls.
Yes.
My basement walls, foundation walls, is
shit.
I don't know how to read this. I'm not 100% sure. I have 10-10/15/21. So I'll have to look into that. So obviously, +5. I'm not sure. Let's see. R 10/15/21. So this denotes that R10 continuous insulation on the exterior. R15 continuous insulation on the interior, or R21 cavity insulation plus a thermal break between the slab and the basement wall. So that's our basement wall requirement. R10 on the outside, and then you don't have to do anything on the inside. You can do whatever you want.
Yeah, do the
R15. Yeah, R15 on the inside, continuous now. And then you could do whatever you want. You got to have R15. Or you build a 2x6 wall and you insulate that.
Continuous exterior insulation if you're building a foundation, right?
Yeah, if your house is already built that way. But if we're remodeling and all of a sudden we want to do a basement remodel, what's the rule?
Oh, sure, you don't have that option.
No, then you have R15 continuous or on the inside, or you have to build a 2x6 wall and insulate that. So
okay, yeah,
that's what we're doing. Crazy, but there's the differences. It wasn't as big of a difference as I thought it was going to be. I really thought that there was going to be a bigger span in the numbers. Not so much. We're doing continuous insulation a little bit more than you guys are, I think. It's kind of my biggest takeaway. Yeah, we didn't talk about slab and insulating a slab or anything like that. We do a little bit of garage conversions. People want to push out into their garage for extra space. Sometimes we have to consider whether we have to insulate above or below the slab. Because remember now that garage it's not meant to be lived in. So probably the slab may not have been insulated. And if it's not insulated underneath it, we're going to have to insulate it on top, which means that you have to really consider your head height, because now you're going to start losing some head height because we have to lift the floor up, which is not that bad. Usually you want to lift the floor up so you can get up to kind of the level of interior of the house, which is ideal. So you want to bring that floor up anyway, but you don't always have the head height. And especially if you have a beam or something in the garage, you might not be able to. I was in a situation where we ended up having to jackhammer the entire floor, dig down in the garage, insulate, re-pour, and then build from there.
Ugh.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, that's involved.
It is. If you want to do it.
I hope that was a pretty room when it was done.
Them the rules. Yeah, we were doing it for, it was an ADU situation. It was a disabled child growing up in with a wheelchair. And so he basically we were building out the whole garage for his own space. It was his own bathroom, his own bedroom, and his own little space. It's kind of nice.
Nice.
Good for him.
Nice. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So,
okay.
All right. Where do we want to go from here? Insulation, those the differences of Washington and Illinois, I guess.
Yeah. If we're on this topic, I feel like we should talk about air sealing.
Air sealing. Yeah, sure. I go a little nuts on air sealing, as you can imagine, as I do with everything else.
As you should.
My drywallers don't understand me. Like,
no one
they're
understands
just like, yeah. So I'm asking them to caulk. Here's the thing. Like, I know for air sealing, the best way that I know how to air seal, and no one else is doing it that I'm involved with. So when I'm like, hey, drywaller, before you put up that sheet of drywall on the exterior wall, can you run a bead of caulk across the top and across the bottom? Does not compute. Does not compute.
It doesn't make sense to him, or he just won't do it because he thinks you're crazy.
Agreed. He doesn't doesn't make any sense to him. What doesn't make any sense? So it's kind of crazy. I have this little. I'll show it to you. Put it on the screen. It's this little graph to kind of show where you should be putting some insulation things like caulk. The red dot would be where I'm asking them to caulk behind the drywall. The yellow dot, now this just happens to have a window in it as well, so you can talk about that. The yellow dot is where you'd want to use that blue can we talked about in a previous window and door 101 series. So that's where it makes sense to me. I don't know anyone else that's doing it other than me. And most of the time, if I'm not going around before the drywallers, it's not getting done because they just shake their head. Yeah. And then they think I'm nuts and then they don't do it. So
yeah, I'm not surprised.
Drives me nuts.
Right.
Drives me nuts. I feel as though I don't know if it's necessarily correct to put it onto the drywallers to air seal. I'm not sure. Because I haven't had or worked with trade partners that understand and want to be at that level, where I'm the one that's always the instigator on trying to, hey, I just learned about this new way of air sealing. It really makes sense to me. I think we should do it. No one else is on board, right? So it's like a constant uphill battle. So I'm interested to hear what you think, because what do you think about air sealing with?
So, well, air sealing on its face, I'm all for. Right? I mean, if you want to add a little bit of air sealing on your bottom plate there, between the subfloor and the bottom plate for your drywalling, I wouldn't argue with that. Absolutely, do it. Why not? Every little bit helps, right? So, I think that would fall into the lap of the insulator as opposed to the drywaller for me, only because the way I see it, at least insulators have like they know they're looking at that wall differently. A drywaller, they're just looking at hanging sheets and going. It's just hang it and tape it and go. Insulators are going to be a little more concerned with kind of, some air sealing aspect and making sure those cavities are filled properly. And especially if you have guys that are doing spray foam, they're going to be a little more inclined to make sure that they're at least familiar with air sealing. So if you ran that by them, they're probably a little more accepting of that and don't just humor you and say, oh yeah, sure. And then as soon as you leave, they're just going right back to hanging drywall and not paying any attention. But I mean, that's with what we do, a lot of just remodeling stuff. We talk about that all the time because you get for the most part, people that are, what's the most under insulated? It's usually your attic, right? So if people go to insulate that attic and you have a bunch of can lights popped into your ceiling, are you doing anything about that beforehand, right? A lot of guys just blowing insulation all over the place and it's fine. Well, number one, are you looking at those cans to make sure they're IC rated, which they all are now, but if it's an older house, they may not be IC rated, which means IC standing for insulation contact, which means you don't just throw insulation on top of them. You're going to cause too much heat buildup and potentially start a fire. This is why DIY.
Yeah, I remember building boxes. I remember building boxes around those in the garage, in the attic. Yeah,
sure. Yeah. So you're building boxes around that. But even if those are IC rated cans, you want to make sure that's properly sealed. You're around your can cutout before you're doing insulation. Otherwise, you're still creating air leakage and it's just waste, right? So that's just air sealing in general. It's important. It's an extra step that you put in there and you want to do it and do it right. So you're getting a good return on your investment.
Amen. Amen. Yeah. I would say and argue with anyone that air sealing is the number one bang for your buck. I think going around and air sealing and caulking and doing all of that, I mean, if it's a new build, this is easy. If it's a remodel project, probably not so easy. But air sealing is where you want to put most of your energy at, because A, it's generally cheap, but B, it's most effective. That's going to probably make more of an impact than adding another 10R value of insulation in your attic. 100%.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. And like you said, it's how much you spending for, even if you're getting a nice OSI or acoustical caulk, it's you're not spending a lot of money on it here. So yeah.
No, I mean the caulk is
a low skill.
Yeah.
If you find someone willing to do it, it's a lower skill to be able to do that and do it properly, you know?
Yeah. Yep. 100%. Well, I don't know. Is there anything else you want to talk about? I can bring up the differences 2x4, 2x6 walls. I just want to touch on that. So specifically when it comes to the gap when you build a header over a window or a door in the exterior wall, 2x6 wall, there's a header, and there is a gap because the header isn't necessarily as wide as the 2x6, right? So now there's going to be a gap. You building a 2x4 wall, you wouldn't have a gap, so you wouldn't really know or care. But we want to make sure that we cut rigid insulation and put that in there.
Are you sandwiching that rigid insulation between your let's say 2x10s for typical header, 2x8s for whatever you're doing?
No. Out here, we do a lot of 4x material because it's readily available in Douglas fir. You don't have that option. You're most likely in the Midwest building your smaller sections of headers still with 2x materials with a 1/2 inch plywood smashed in between them, right?
Yeah. You use 4x4s?
Yep. Everything.
No kidding.
Oh yeah. It's so readily available. I get
4x4 Doug. I mean, I can get 4x4 Doug fir, but you're going to pay for it, you know?
Yeah, so but
it's not going to be cost effective out here.
It's readily stocked at the lumberyard.
Okay. Yeah.
I can get a 4x8, 4x10, 4x12, whatever length I want, right here.
I'm wondering. I'm not saying it's not enough to span a typical header, but you think a 4x4 has the same? I mean, I suppose it depends on your span, right? Like if you're using 2x8s, 2x10s, 2x12s. I'm just wondering the load capability of a 4x4.
You're wondering which one's stronger?
Yeah, but I guess it depends. What do you have that up against? 4x4 versus what? 2x8s, 2x6s, 2x12s. Yeah. I suppose it depends.
I don't know. I just started building that way because that's how they build out here. It was so surprising to me as well, and how easily it was to get 4x material, but it is. So, anywho, that's a little different, right?
Yeah. So where are you putting this again? So if you're doing 4x4 material, that's still gonna give you that 3.5 inches. So how are you setting this foam board? Where are you putting this foam board?
Where am I putting this foam board?
I'm
putting it right behind the 4x material or your 2x smashed header. Whoops, not that one. This one. hold on, I gotta get the right screen up. My bad. There we go. That is that like bluish greenish material. That's your rigid foam board. That's my insulation. Okay. And then on the other side of that is your 2x4 or your 4x4 header on the inside. And now this is on the inside.
Right. And that's your typical build?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. 100%. So when we're going around and you're looking at your framers when they're all done and everything, and then you get your insulators out there to insulate eventually, you want to make sure that gap is filled.
Yeah. All right.
Makes sense?
I like it. Yeah. Makes sense.
Good.
Makes sense. Saves dollars.
That's right.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to touch on?
I mean, I don't know if we want to get into types of insulation, especially this late in the conversation, but there's the
not really.
No.
You have I guess we can really quick. You have faced, not faced.
If you're dealing with fiberglass,
faced is generally, when we're talking about fiberglass, faced and not faced. I mean, not faced fiberglass is generally the way to go. And then you have rock wool, which we touched on a little bit in a previous episode. That stuff's amazing.
I love rock wool. Yeah.
You have spray foam, which I'm not a big fan of. It has its space.
You're not a big fan of spray foam?
No.
What?
That stuff is so toxic. So bad for you.
Don't eat it. Just put it in the walls and seal it up.
It off gases for like ever.
It seals and insulates.
It does seal and it does insulate, and there is a space for it.
And squashes fire codes and satisfies fire codes.
There is a time and place for it, but if I were to use it, I would love to not cover it up for like a month. That stuff needs to off gas.
Oh, okay.
I've read so much about how bad the air quality inside a house gets when it's spray foamed. It's just not good. And there's 101 variables for that to happen. So I'm not getting into that, but generally I'm not a big fan and I won't use it unless I need to.
Yeah. Okay.
So that's where I fall on that. And then there's open cell. So there's that. That's also spray foam, open and closed. We talked about the rigid boards. Those rigid boards, we like using those in the basement walls and behind the headers, as we just shown. Underneath slabs, we like using those for underneath a slab. What else we got? Anything else am I missing? Insulation?
Cellulose.
Yeah, we can talk about all the weird ones that we don't use.
Right. Yeah.
Recycled denim, that's a thing.
Recycled denim.
So you can take your jeans and just throw them in the wall.
That's it. Done.
Hope for the best.
Yeah. Levi's 505s.
Hay's a big thing.
Hay's a fantastic insulator.
Hemp? Yeah, and the rats will love you for it. So
it also might be flammable. Not 100% sure, but it strikes me as flammable.
When you
barns go up, right? Barns start on fire. Right. They don't seem to go out easily.
Yeah, I'm sure they figured this out, but when you're in the Midwest and you're in Illinois and you just happen to drive west out in the middle of absolutely nowhere and you see all these big giant piles of grass and hay and you see it's just off, not off gassing, but all this like smoke and gas and stuff is just coming out of them. Like and then you're going to throw that in your wall? I guess.
Some people do.
It's a thing. Never used it. I don't know anything about it. So I'm not going to say that it's bad or good. I don't know. But that's an option too.
I know some old hippies up in Wisconsin that used it. You know, when I was taking solar classes, there were some old hippies up there. Yeah. They were literally building walls, and it looked like it looks like, remember that the Smurfs houses? Like they're almost like mushroom soft curved shapes.
Oh.
Like, remember the show The Smurfs? Yeah.
Yeah.
I was like, if you remember like what their houses kind of look like, they were like very soft, just cushiony looking, and like that's what these hippies were building. And they were building like literally like hay, straw baled freaking 30-inch thick exterior walls, and it was some combination of just hay and some like clay and mud and whatever and something else to make some sort of they mixed all this together and
I think
set it all in place and put some sort of sealant on it, and that's what they were building.
That stuff is like super interesting to me. I would love to build something like that. Like uber, just like off the land kind of. I can't remember what the houses are called. I want to say like oh man, I can't. They would build them in the side of a wall. You'd take recycled rubber tires, pack them with dirt. That would be your wall, and then in the front of the hill, you build a like a greenhouse in front. So you have like a greenhouse, then in the front, and then in the back is under dirt. Super, super energy efficient, just off the land kind of thing.
Yeah.
I can't remember. I got into those like, I don't know, 8 years ago. I was watching somebody on YouTube. He was big into building them. I can't remember what they were called, but they were really cool. I like the concept. It was all about just living off the grid. Cool.
Yeah. Just kind of doing something out of the norm. And I applaud that. Yeah. I applaud that. These old hippies seem super happy. Yeah. They just walked around teaching energy efficient stuff and solar stuff and just helping each other build houses in their, middle of nowhere Wisconsin commune type thing. It's weird.
And it's Wisconsin, so it gets bitterly cold up there. And I'm sure their houses are insulated well.
Seemed warm to me. Seemed warm, seemed comfortable.
On that note,
yeah.
Cheers, everyone.
Yeah. Cheers. Salud.